What's going on, guys? Matt with Motorworks here, and I have a video on how to replace the throttle body on the Chrysler 300 srt8. I believe the process is going to be the same on your 5.7 liter Hemi as well as your 6.1 liter Hemi. One thing I want to say is, if you're going to do this job, this is the old throttle body, by the way. One thing you want to do is buy a factory Mopar throttle body, and I'll put a part number in the description below. But I got my throttle body from Amazon. It was right around $200 with free shipping to my door. I've put over 10,000 miles on my car and have had no issues with the throttle body light coming on or throttle body related problems. I highly recommend, if you're gonna do this job, get the factory throttle body, the OEM. Don't go with an aftermarket. Again, I've heard horror stories. But without further ado, guys, here's the throttle body replacement video. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks for checking it out. Tools we're going to be using: a 10mm deep well socket, an 8mm shallow with extension, a 3/8 ratchet, and we also are going to be using a torque wrench as well. Alright, first want to start by unplugging the throttle body itself and just leave that loosely unplugged. We'll then want to loosen the clamps that hold the intake on to the throttle body and the airbox. Then we'll just loosen those. Now, I have the stock intake. It might be different on your car depending on what intake you have. So I didn't really go into detail on how to actually remove it. If you do have the stock intake, that little air box there on the side, you just want to be careful and lift that up and not pull that out. Now, this next step you can either do or not do. You got plenty of wire there to just set the intake tube off to the side. I unplugged the intake temperature sensor, but again, it's not something you absolutely have to do. Alright, now we're going to remove the throttle body. There's just 4 bolts that secure the throttle body to the intake manifold. So just remove those bolts. You can do a crisscross pattern. It doesn't really matter at this point. Alright, once you get those bolts loose, then you should just be able to spin those out by hand. Keep in mind where the wiring goes and how it's routed for the throttle body connector itself. Next you want to do is inspect the gasket that goes to the intake manifold. I recently replaced this, thinking that it was the issue, so that is a brand new gasket on there. Alright, once you check that or replace that gasket, grab your new throttle body and line up the bolt with the thread holes and just start to spin that on there, and just do the same with the rest. The one thing you want to keep in mind is that the connector for the throttle body does have a mount for the wire, so you want to make sure and get that properly installed, where you want to put the bolt through the little mounting bracket, and then go ahead and make sure you get that to click on there. And once you do that, just go around and tighten the bolts for the throttle body. And then once you tighten those, you can go in a crisscross pattern for a nice even tightening. After you're done with that, you want to torque the bolts down. I have the torque spec listed here, so just torque those bolts down. And then after you do that, I don't know if this next step is going to work for you guys, but for me, I had the computer available. So what I did is, before I started the car, I actually went through and I relearned the throttle body, and I thought it was kind of neat, so I put it up here. You guys can take a listen to what the process sounded like. Alright, now the job from here on out is pretty straightforward. Just want to make sure that you have everything plugged in securely, and go ahead and reassemble the air intake. So that's how you change the throttle body on the Chrysler 300. Again, srt8 5.7 Hemi. I believe they're the same. I had access to a good scan tool, so that's why I did the throttle body relearn. I'm not 100% sure if it's absolutely necessary, but I had the equipment to do it, so I did it. It worked great for me. Again, like I said, the car's running fine, and it has been for the last 10 or so thousand miles since I actually replaced that throttle body. And that's gonna do it for this video, guys. If you liked the video, as always, leave a thumbs up, drop any comments below. I'm Matt, this is Motorworks. If you want to stick around, I'll go and look at my old throttle body and show you what I think happened with it and why I think the old throttle body failed. And so if you actually look at the throttle body, right here is where I think the issue was with this. If you look here, it's easier to see on the opposite side here. There's some gouging in the metal on the throttle body, and I think what was happening is either there was extra air seeping past that, or it possibly could have been hanging up when the throttle body was open. I don't know if you could see in there. I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but it's right in there. There's some gouging. So the other theory I have is that this rod inside here where it attaches, it could possibly be loose, and moving that in and out just ever so slightly to where maybe it was hanging up on here when it was coming back to idle and causing it to hang up and create that air leak, that unmetered air leak that it was having an issue with. That's the only thing I saw on this, guys, so I'm not 100%. It's just a theory, but there's my opinion. It's good for whatever it's worth. If you stuck around for this, thank you as always. We'll see you in the next video, guys.